Will the House come to order, Mr. Clerk?
Aloha and good morning. Today's invocation will be delivered by Mark M. Nakashima. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please be seated. I am. Members, March is National Kidney Month, and March 9th is the World Kidney Day. World Kidney Day is a global campaign to raise awareness of the importance of kidneys to overall health and to reduce the frequency and impact of kidney disease and associated health problems. The 2023 theme is Kidney Health for All, preparing for the unexpected, supporting the valuable, vulnerable. The campaign will focus on raising awareness about disastrous events, natural or man-made, and the impact on people living with kidney disease when access to appropriate diagnostic services, treatment, and care is impacted. After the fact, a little over a year ago, friends of mine had been secretly referring to me as the Walking Dead and worried when I came into their offices because they were concerned that I might die on them. I'm pleased to report that these worst fears did not come to fruition. However, I didn't learn about any of this until after my kidney transplant. I am touched that they had my health in mind. I benefited from an anonymous donor who gave me a special gift of life. Organ donation can change somebody's life for the better, and I would encourage you to consider this precious gift as a living donor or a future organ donor. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you and welcome back, Representative Nakashima. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayu, Mr. Alcos, Ms. Amato, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Chun, Ms. Cochran,
Excused.
Mr. Evslin, Mr. Ganadin, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Gates, Mr. Hashem, Mr. Holt, Ms. Hussey Burdick, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Iligan, Ms. Kahaloa, Ms. Capella, Mr. Kila, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Ms. Lachika, Ms. Lamosao, Ms. Lowen, Ms. Martin, Ms. Martinez,
Excused.
Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. Miyake, Ms. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Pirik, Ms. Poepoe, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Ms. Souza, Mr. Takayama, Ms. Takenouchi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Ward, Mr. Woodson,
Excused.
Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 48 members are present, 3 are excused.
Okay, we're on item 2, reading of the Journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the Governor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of Governor's Message Number 4, requesting the immediate passage of Senate Bill Number 582, Senate Draft 1, and transmitting a proposed draft. May this matter be received and filed.
So ordered. Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a communication returning House Bill Number 2520, having passed third reading in the Senate. We are in further receipt of communications transmitting the noted Senate bills, all having passed third reading in the Senate.
Okay, for the motion to pass first reading, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Senate bills laying on the clerk's desk pass first reading by title.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members, are there any introductions? Representative Quinlan.
Mr. Speaker, in the gallery today, I have one of my most treasured constituents. He's an entrepreneur, a community leader, and the owner of the now world-famous Seven Brothers Restaurants, Art Hanneman. Welcome to your House of Representatives.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, I have the honor of introducing someone who misses us here, especially the Minority Caucus, especially for his sense of humor. Please welcome back former Representative Bob Adjournment, who wants to be a U.S. Senator. Welcome, Bob.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also like to welcome Fathers and Mothers for Children, their entire nonprofit, and their leadership is here today, and also Cynthia Barlett, the leader of Moms for Liberty. Thank you for being here.
Representative Perrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery, we also have Minister Diane and many others in the gallery.
Are there further introductions? If not, the chair would like to recognize from Life of the Land, Mr. Henry Curtis and Ms. Kat Brady. Okay, and members will be taking a short recess subject to the call of the chair. Recess. come to order. Members, we're on Part 1, consent calendar. First motion is to suspend the rules. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain House bills for third reading by consent calendar.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. For the motion to pass third reading, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 2 through 21 and that the House bills listed on pages 2 through 34 as may be amended past third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, there is no discussion as these are items agreed to by this body for placement on the consent calendar. So we'll be taking the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 3, STANCOM report number 88424, HB number 1782, HD2, Rep. Amato votes no. On page 5, STANCOM report number 905-24, HB number 2710, HD2, Rep. Kong votes no. On page 19, STANCOM report number 1034-24, HB number 2767, HD2, the following vote no. Ayu Kila. On page 21, STANCOM report number 1066-24, HB number 2341, HD2, Rep. Kong votes no. Hang on. Okay, on page 30, STANCOM report number 682-24, HB number 1758, HD1, Rep. Capella votes no. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? Should do that for the rest of the calendar, Representative Garcia. Have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass third reading. Members, please remember to submit to the clerk the list of House bills on the consent calendar for which you will be inserting written comments in support or in opposition. This must be done by the adjournment of today's floor session, and we'll be taking a short recess prior to convening the ordinary calendar. Recess subject to call of the chair. Will the House come to order? All right, members, we're on part 2. We're on the ordinary calendar. Before we begin debate, the chair would like to remind members that while the House floor is an important venue for members to speak and debate, the House rules, and particularly Rule 62, require that remarks be confined to the content of the measures before us and that remarks be civil and respectful. As the Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure states, freedom of speech involves obedience to all the rules of debate. The language used by members during debate should be temperate, decorous, and respectful. So accordingly, the chair reserves the right to call attention to breaches of order and to strike remarks that violate the House rules. So with that, can we begin our discussion on page 35, SCR 871? Any discussion? Oh, sorry, motions. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 35 through 39 and that the accompanying House bills as may be amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on SCR 871, 872, 876, 874? Next page, 879, 880, 882. Representative Perrick,
In opposition.
please proceed.
This bill, from my understanding, would prolong a conversation where the renter and the homeowner potentially try to figure out a way for the renter to pay off his rent. When a landlord, a homeowner, has a mortgage, that mortgage needs to have a sometimes bi-monthly or monthly payment to come in, and if that is prolonged by the renter not being able to pay the homeowner, that can cause a problem for the homeowner. So I'll be voting no.
Yes, Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, when it's appropriate, can we go back to 877?
Yes, 882 first. 882, if not 8.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Ganadin,
in support,
please proceed.
882. This was a very successful measure that was a result of the housing crisis that happened about a decade throughout the United States. This is sort of just renewing that very important program. Eviction mediation is necessary to keep people out of far more costly forms of litigation.
Okay, is there further discussion on 882? If not, 877, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. It's always good to start out an all-day debate in a positive way, because this is a good bill. I'm in strong support, and basically what it does is that it amends the Hawaiian Home Act of 1920 by increasing the loan limit for direct loans provided by the Department of Hawaiian Homes from 50% to 70%. Mr. Speaker, this is only fair, and you know, quite frankly, many loans are at 80%, so in a way it's in the right direction, but it probably should be higher. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, this is a good bill for getting housing for the DHHL waitlist. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, we're back on page 36, 883, 887. Next page, 889, 891, 892, 893, 894. Representative Poi Poi.
893 reservations.
So ordered. Okay, 894. Next page, 895. Representative Souza.
With reservations, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
896. Representative Souza.
With reservations. Thank you.
So ordered. Okay, 897, 898, 899. Next page, 900, 901, 902, 90. Representative Matsumoto. 902.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the appropriate time, if we can go back to 901.
Okay, why don't you proceed on 901?
Just with reservations and permission to insert comments into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion on 901. Okay, if not, 902, Representative Miyake.
With reservations, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, 903, Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations
So ordered.
and also permission to insert comments into the journal.
So ordered. Okay, 906. Representative Lamasao.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Miyake.
Same request, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 906 or any other of the measures? If not, we'll be taking the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 35, STANCOM report number 876-24, HB number 2091, HD1, the following vote no. Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso. On page 36, STANCOM report number 879-24, HB number 2358, HD1, the following vote no. Amato, Ganaden, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso, Poi Poi, Tam. STANCOM report number 880-24, HB number 2416, HD1, the following vote no. Ayu, Amato, Kila, Lamasao, Martin, Peruso, Poi Poi. On page 38, STANCOM report number 89824, HB number 1542, HD2, the following vote no. Hussey Burdick, Martin, Peruso. STANCOM report number 899-24, HB number 2029, HD2, the following vote no. Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso, Poi Poi. On page 39, STANCOM report number 901-24, HB number 2067, HD2, the following vote no. Kong, La Chica. STANCOM report number 90224, HB number 2278, HD2, Rep. Kong votes no. STANCOM report number 906-24, HB number 1897, HD2, Rep. Kong votes no.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 36, SCR 882-24, House Bill 2642, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. SCR 883-24, House Bill 1812, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. Page 37, SCR 889-24, House Bill 2555, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. SCR 891-24, House Bill 2428, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. Page 39, SCR 901-24, House Bill 2067, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 903-24, House Bill 1611, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 906-24, House Bill 1897, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? Representative Hussey Burdick.
Apologies, Mr. Speaker. May I please register yes with reservations on STANCOM report number 880, HB 2416.
On 880, so ordered.
Thank you.
Are there additional votes? Okay, if not, said measures pass third reading. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 40 through 44 and that the company house bills as may be amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? Begin with SCR 907, 908, 909, 910, 911. Representative Perrick,
In opposition?
please proceed.
My understanding is that there's 2 unions who testified in support of this bill, but there's 16 groups who testified in opposition. I'll be voting no.
Okay, further discussion? If not, next page 912, 913, 915. Representative Lamasao.
With reservations.
So ordered.
Speaker,
Representative Chun and followed by Representative Nakashima.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Nakashima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, O. MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on his farm he had a milk cow, E-I-E-I-O. Milk, milk here, milk there, here, milk there, milk everywhere, milk, milk. O. MacDonald had a farm, and his milk wasn't pasteurized either, Mr. Speaker. People wonder why I keep pushing this bill. And it is for one family who lives in my district who has 4 cows, unless you happen to be 40 miles out of Hilo and 30 miles up a single road, you are never going to find this dairy. So let me alleviate many of the fears that this is going to be a widespread enterprise. And I am looking at a single family selling to their neighbors, and I don't know how many other farms there may be out there, but I'm sure that none of them are near you. Mahalo.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, in support,
Please proceed.
and to commend the musician who just sang his support. I wish that I would be on tune in the journal as if it was my own song. Thank you.
So ordered. Representative Onishi.
Mr. Speaker, in strong opposition,
Please proceed.
when I joined the legislature, one of the roles I believe is the role of a legislator is to do no harm and to protect the health of the residents of Hawaii. Over my tenure, we have discussed, debated, amended, passed, and killed bills that impact the health and safety of the residents of Hawaii. We have addressed alcohol consumption, smoking, vaping, dangerous drugs that have a negative impact on the health and safety of the residents of Hawaii. We have addressed the use of defibrillators, allergy medications, requiring immunizations, and overdose reversing drugs to protect the health and safety of the residents of Hawaii. HB 1989 HD2, which allows the sale of raw milk to the public, is legislation that goes against the protection of the health and safety of the residents of Hawaii. In the Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee on this bill, we received testimony in opposition from the Department of Health and the Department of Agriculture. Both departments we count on to help ensure the quality and safety of the foods that are made available to the residents of Hawaii. We also received testimony in opposition from the Hawaii Farm Bureau, the foremost private nonprofit organization in Hawaii that is the strongest advocates for the continued support and development of agriculture and agricultural products for our residents in Hawaii. Their message in opposition was that raw milk is unsafe. Mr. Speaker, when I checked the Center for Disease Control's website regarding raw milk, on their web's page, Food Safety, under subheading Foods that Cause Food Poisoning, raw milk is listed as one of those foods. On the raw milk page, it says, and I quote, "Unfortunately, some people are choosing to drink raw milk. Raw milk and products made from it can make you and your loved ones sick. Raw milk has not undergone a process called pasteurization that kills disease-causing germs. Pasteurized milk is safe and healthy food. When milk pasteurization began in the early 90s, deaths and diarrhea illness in young children declined dramatically. If you go to the Fast Facts, Why is Raw Milk Unsafe page, it says, raw milk is one of the riskiest foods. Most of the nutritional benefits of drinking raw milk are available from pasteurized milk without the risk of disease that comes from drinking raw milk. Anyone, even healthy adults, can get sick from drinking raw milk, but the people most at risk for severe illness are adults 65 years and older, children younger than 5 years, and people with weakened immune systems. Does that warning sound familiar? Mr. Speaker, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration website regarding raw milk says on their Food Safety and Raw Milk webpage, while the perceived nutritional and health benefits of raw milk consumption have not been scientifically substantiated, the health risks are clear. While raw milk puts all consumers at risk, the elderly, immune-compromised people, children, and pregnant women are especially vulnerable to the hazards of raw milk consumption. FDA's consumer education will continue to focus on helping consumers understand the risks to these populations. The FDA's position on raw milk is in concert with the Centers of Disease Control and American Academy of Pediatricians. Mr. Speaker, the American Academy of Pediatricians on their raw milk What You Need to Know website has a similar warning.
Representative Caruso.
Yield my time.
Thank you. Anyone can get sick from drinking raw milk or products made from raw milk. Raw milk may be contained in cream, cheeses, yogurt, ice cream, frozen yogurt, or pudding. Children, pregnant women, people with weakened immune systems, or older adults are more likely to get sick. Although most healthy people get well, the symptoms can become chronic, long-term, or severe, or may even result in death. With that, Mr. Speaker, I cannot support this bill and vote no.
Okay, is there further? Representative Morikawa,
Mr. Speaker, in support.
please proceed.
When I was raised on the Big Island on Parker Ranch, the only milk that we had access to was raw milk. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I don't think I would drink it today. However, I believe that maybe I obtained a lot of immunities from drinking it. But when you're poor, sometimes this is something that you must drink. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further? Representative Capella,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
please proceed.
So this is not something that was really on my radar at the beginning of legislative session, but recently I had the opportunity during the recess to go and visit a farm in my district. And this specifically is one of the bills that would really impact this farm. This is something that would allow these farmers to be able to sell to their neighbors, something that they're already trying to do or want to do, but unfortunately can't because of a law. So I think the reality is that this bill doesn't force anyone to drink raw milk. If you don't want to drink raw milk, good for you. There's a litany of stores all across the state where you can buy pasteurized milk. But if you do want to buy raw milk, you should be able to have that opportunity, because I think that not only does it benefit the farmers, but it also benefits the individuals who should have a choice in the milk that they buy, or the products that they want to buy, or the farms that they want to support. For those reasons, I'm in support of this measure. Thank you.
Is there further discussion, members? If not, 917, 919, next page, 921, 924, 925, 927, 928. Representative Perrick,
In opposition?
please proceed.
This bill exempts construction of roads, waterworks, bridges, airfields, walls, canals, surface parking, utilities, piers, landscaping, athletic fields, and play courts from the 1% transfer into the works of special art. That's a good thing. I'm glad that we are making a motion to decrease the amount of taxpayer dollars that go towards art. However, this bill still has appropriation to art, and for that reason, I vote no.
Is there further discussion? If not, next page, 929. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. Strong support for this small business tax credit. It'll help the pharmacists, researchers,
Please
and other
proceed.
small businesses. And request insert into the journal with comments.
So ordered.
Thank you.
All right, 932, Representative Ayu.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Garcia.
Same request.
So ordered. Okay, 935,
Speaker,
Representative Lamasau.
can I go back to the previous measure with reservations? Thank you.
929, so ordered.
I'm so sorry. No, for 932.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
For 932.
932, okay, so ordered. That was reservations, so ordered. Any discussion on 932? Okay, if not, 935, Representative Husty Burdick.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Bellotti.
Thank you. In support, request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Okay, 936. Next page, 938, 941, 942. Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the appropriate time, if we can go back to 936.
Why don't we take that up now? 936, Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations and permission to insert comments into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion on 936, Representative Ayu.
With reservations as well.
So ordered. Representative Purek.
In opposition to 936,
Please proceed.
this bill would appropriate tax dollar funds to go towards public financing of elections. So that means the people of Hawaii, they would have money taken out of their paycheck and become taxes, and that would fund Democrats and Republicans running for office. So that would mean the taxpayer money of a Republican would finance the Democrats' election, and vice versa. I'm voting no.
Okay, so further discussion on 936. Okay, if not, we're back on 942. Representative Takayama.
Mr. Speaker, may I request a ruling on a possible conflict?
Please state your potential conflict.
My daughter works as an associate public defender.
All right, the chair's ruling is that there is no conflict. Your daughter is already an existing employee of the Public Defender's Office, and this ruling applies through Sunny Day.
Thank you, Speaker.
Further discussion on 942. If not, 944. Representative Purek.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill would basically require a certain amount of women to be hired into the law enforcement. That's affirmative action. I don't believe we should be supporting that. People should be hired based on the merits of their character, not necessarily based on the merits of their ethnicity, gender, or other things like that. If we're looking for certain qualities in a candidate for the law enforcement office, let's say compassionate, caring, using less excessive force, then we should describe those as things we're looking for in hiring people into law enforcement, and not just say we need more females in law enforcement.
Representative Gannon.
In support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this bill has support from law enforcement across the state and all counties. Unlike what the previous speaker just mentioned, has nothing to do with, what did he say? Character, yeah, affirmative action. Also, it's not mandated. This is a goal. Law enforcement is one of the last sectors of public employment that hasn't been integrated regarding gender. We now know from data from across the United States that women make excellent officers. So if you're watching, if you're a woman and you think you qualify for law enforcement here in the state, please apply. There's about 400 positions open statewide. Women tend to de-escalate better and make excellent employees. So for those reasons, in support.
Representative Todd.
Thank you. In support.
Please proceed.
I think one of the strengths of law enforcement here in Hawaii is that it's relatively representative of our population, especially when compared to many other states where there's a huge divide between urban and rural communities, where very often law enforcement officers come from rural communities and end up policing very often in more urban communities where there's a disconnect. So I think this would just kind of lean further into that strength of Hawaii's law enforcement agencies, where it could be even more representative of our population, which is very important. There's been a ton of studies on things like implicit bias, and the more representative we can make that law enforcement community, the better our outcomes could be. Thank you.
Representative Ayu.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Any further discussion on 944? If not, 945. Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for ruling on a potential conflict.
Please state your potential conflict.
Mr. Speaker, the measure in this HB 2340, I'm employed by a law firm that has a claim in this for which I've done no work on this claim.
You say you did no work on this case?
No work on this case.
All right. The chair's ruling is that there is no conflict on this measure. Applies to a class of claims, and the ruling remains in effect through sine die unless circumstances change. Okay, is there further discussion on 945 or any other measure? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 40, STANCOM report number 909-24, HB number 1896, HD2, the following vote no. Ayu, Kila, Kong. STANCOM report number 910-24, HB number 1936, HD2, the following vote no. Martin, Poi Poi. For STANCOM report number 911-24, HB number 2112, HD2, the following vote no. Amato, Hasi Burdick, La Chica. On page 41, STANCOM report number 913-24, HB number 2089, HD2, the following vote no. Capella, Kong. Peruso, Poi Poi. STANCOM report number 915-24, HB number 1989, HD2, the following vote no. Ayu, Amato, Garrett, Kitagawa, Kong, Martin, Matayoshi, Onishi, Peruso, and Tam. On page 42, STANCOM report number 924-24, HB number 1780, HD1, Rep. Kila votes no. For STANCOM report number 927-24, HB number 1807, HD2, the following vote no. Hasi Burdick, Capella, La Chica, Peruso. On page 43, STANCOM report number 932-24, HB number 1779, HD2, the following vote no. Ayu, Kila. STANCOM report number 935-24, HB number 2159, HD2, Rep. Capella votes no. On page 44, STANCOM report number 944-24, HB number 2231, HD1, Rep. Kila votes no. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 40, SCR 907-24, House Bill 2390, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 909-24, House Bill 1896, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. SCR 911-24, House Bill 2112, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. Page 41, SCR 912-24, House Bill 2475, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. SCR 917-24, House Bill 2140, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. SCR 919-24, House Bill 2133, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. Page 42, SCR 924-24, House Bill 1780, House Draft 1, Garcia votes no. SCR 925-24, House Bill 1939, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 927-24, House Bill 1807, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. SCR 928-24, House Bill 1940, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. Page 43, SCR 932-24, House Bill 1779, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. SCR 936-24, House Bill 1845, House Draft 2, Garcia and Perrick vote no. Page 44, SCR 941-24, House Bill 1917, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 942-24, House Bill 1608, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. SCR 944-24, House Bill 2231, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no.
Members, have all votes been cast? Okay, if so, said measure is passed third reading. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 45 through 49 and that the accompanying House bills as may be amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion, beginning with SCR 946 on page 45, 950, 951, 952, 955. Next page, 956. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise painfully with reservations. Why am I saying am I rising painfully? Because it's part of what the Jobs and the Business Group did when you put everybody into a working group. I was on that group. I was proud to be in that group. But, Mr. Speaker, what we've delivered in this bill falls really short. I use the analogy of, and this is true, the Maui business community is really drowning. They are suffering. They are painful. They are really in need of a lot of help. As you see a drowning swimmer, instead of throwing a life preserver, we throw them swimming lessons, Mr. Speaker. This bill gives them an adjunct professor at the university, one person. And all the needs that we heard when we went to Maui, I don't see how we can justify this. The point is, it kind of damns with faint praise. I mean, it's good that we're doing that, but let's remember CNHA has been doing a, quote, carpenter academy, construction academy, for months already. So they're already in there doing that. So if we're going to help jobs and business and we come up with a professor, is that the best we can do? I don't think so, Mr. Speaker. So yeah, it's okay, but it's painful to see that the business community is crying out and we give them a professor. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I'm painfully with reservations. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Garrett.
Unpainfully rising in support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. As the co-chair of your interim working group on jobs and business for the Maui recovery, a position I jointly held with a good representative from Chinatown, I'd like to remind this body that our group came up with several recommendations, not just this one. Although this bill may be the only legislative action we proposed, our report included several other recommendations for the three areas we looked at: the initial unemployment situation and performance of the state's unemployment insurance system, the impacts to tourism, and the impacts to businesses. I'd like to remind the representative from Hawaii Kai that shortly after the wildfires, the administration proposed a business assistance fund of $25 million, and that our report included many recommendations that were suggested by businesses in Lahaina when our working group visited them in person for a listening session. Most of our working group's recommendations were aimed at the county, including our suggestions that they provide support for a federal resource navigator and that they improve their communications by sharing more concrete timelines for when businesses that were not impacted by the wildfires may be able to reopen. We also encourage banks and lenders to consider a forbearance on mortgages held by the impacted businesses that lost everything in the wildfires. We know that it's going to take time for Lahaina to rebuild, likely several years, but the one thing that became abundantly clear to the working group is that the county does not currently have the skilled labor necessary to undertake that reconstruction. Providing the additional faculty to UH Maui College, which already has several high-performing construction trades programs in place, would allow them to scale up their programs and expand Maui's construction workforce. Sure, construction is not for everyone, but this bill creates an additional pathway for people who are interested in a new career and may be interested in helping to rebuild their beloved hometown with their own hands. Without growing their own, Maui would have to rely on importing construction workers from other communities across the state, as well as from the continent. And with such a housing crunch on the Valley Isle, the last thing we want to do is exacerbate the situation by forcing Maui to import labor and have them compete for very limited housing. For these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
Okay, 962. 963, 964. Next page, 965, 966. Representative Bellotti.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, when it's appropriate time, can we go back to 965?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On 965, request to, in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
Brief comments. Mr. Speaker, this is a seemingly innocuous bill, but the language that concerns me is the ability being provided to the Department of Transportation to own, hold, improve, and rehabilitate any real, personal, or mixed property and sell. The key word here is to be able to sell lands that they have acquired. And that's concerning to me because of the extent with which Department of Transportation has land holdings across the state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, is there further discussion on 965? If not, 968, 970. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
I'd like to thank the intent behind this bill. However, some people testified in committee that this bill could increase the cost of electricity and therefore increase the cost of living in Hawaii. So I'll be voting no.
Okay, 973. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Sorry, on the previous bill?
On 970, please proceed.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 970? If not, 973. Next page, 974. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill would appropriate funds to the Mass Transit Special Fund. In other words, this would use taxpayer money on the rail. Not a lot of people in Hawaii use the rail. My district has about 4 different rail stations, so definitely my district would to some extent disproportionately be benefited by the rail. However, not even my district, a lot of people use the rail. I think we should use the funds already allocated for the rail to continue with that, and we shouldn't be using more tax dollars on the rail. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Todd.
Hi, thank you. In support.
Please proceed.
I just wanted to note that this is not an additional appropriation because the money is already in the Mass Transit Special Fund. But due to budgetary restraints, namely the ceiling, they just need to kind of reallocate money that is already there because they can't legally spend it at the moment, mostly just due to some red tape. So this is a government efficiency piece of legislation, and would just allow some processes to be streamlined, whereas it's currently being held up by our own kind of inaction in the past. Thanks.
Representative Ganadin.
In support.
Please proceed.
I'd like to adopt the words of the housing chair as if they were my own.
The
Transportation
Chair. Transportation Chair, so ordered.
Yeah. Brief comment, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank not only the Transportation Chair, but the federal government and HART for communicating appropriately and for allocating a significant amount of money to the development of this project that many in my community and others have been waiting for quite a long time.
Okay, is there further discussion on 974? If not, 976, 987, 994. Next page, 996, 998. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise in strong support of 998.
Please proceed.
This is the bill that we watched very closely. I had the honor of being on the Watchdog Committee for the $600 million for the DHHL, the boon that we provided so they can get, and this is what Kali Watson, the director of DHHL, said. With that money, there's going to be 5,000 people taken off of the wait list, Mr. Speaker. With that, they've also committed even beyond the $600 million, so they're really going aggressively. So this is a good bill that says whatever portion is not spent and lapses, we extend that so the $600 million will stay safe within DHHL. It's a good bill. It shows when you give them the resources, DHHL can do the job. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on 998? If not, 999. 1001. Any discussion on any of these measures? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 45, StanCom report number 950-24, HB number 1946, HG2, the following vote no. Ayu, Kila, Lamosao. STANCOM Report number 955-24, HB number 1686, HD1, the following vote no. Kila Lamasao. On page 47, STANCOM Report number 965-24, HB number 1932, HD2, the following vote no. Capella, Peruso, Poi Poi. STANCOM Report number 968-24, HB number 2065, HD2, the following vote no. Gates, Kila. STANCOM Report number 970-24, HB number 1997, HD1, the following vote no. Capella, Martin, Peruso, Poi Poi. On page 48, STANCOM Report number 987-24, HB number 1654, HD2, the following vote no. Capella, Peruso. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 45, SCR 950-24, House Bill 1946, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. SCR 951-24, House Bill 2463, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 955-24, House Bill 1686, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. Page 46, SCR 962-24, House Bill 1925, House Draft 2, Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 963-24, House Bill 2107, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. Page 47, SCR 968-24, House Bill 2065, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. SCR 970-24, House Bill 1997, House Draft 1, Rep. Perrick votes no. Page 48, SCR 976-24, House Bill 2650, House Draft 2, Rep. Perrick votes no. Page 49, SCR 996-24, House Bill 2759, House Draft 2, Rep. Perrick votes no. SCR 999-24, House Bill 1960, House Draft 2, Rep. Perrick votes no.
Great, members, have all votes been cast? Okay, if so, said measures pass third reading. Members, can we take a 5-minute recess, subject to the call of the chair? Recess.
Will the House come to order? Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 50 through 54 and that the accompanying House bills as may be amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Any discussions on STANCOM Report 1004, 1005, actually 1006, 1008? Representative Amato.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise in support. I'd like to thank the author, the Honorable Representative from District 15, for introducing this measure. And I would also like to thank the members of our dental professionals for their commitment to our oral health. And thank you, members, for joining me in supporting our dental community as they provide health for all of us. Mahalo.
Moving on to SCR 1011. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Proceed.
I'd like to thank the introducer of this bill and the heart behind helping those in the homeless community. I don't believe the answer to addressing homelessness is creating a government department, having a government department, funding that government department with taxpayer money to address the homeless issue. I think the solution is less government. So if we have an individual in Hawaii, they have an income. If that income grows, then they can afford to pay for a rent or pay for a mortgage. What limits that is high taxes. Hawaii has some of the highest taxes in the nation. If the business has high corporate income tax, corporate tax, that limits the employer paying the employee. If we have lots of red tape restricting the construction of housing, that makes it more expensive to build a house and then to rent it out or sell it. So these are all things that make the cost of living high in Hawaii, and which sometimes lead people to become homeless. So I don't believe the answer to the homelessness issue is taxing the people of Hawaii, creating a program to service the homeless. The answer is decreasing the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, as we head into difficult budget negotiations, I wanted to place a spotlight on this bill as it is a majority package bill to ensure that the safety net of our community is in place. This bill is considering an appropriation that would fund necessary and critical homeless service outreach programs, care coordination, and transition supports. This particular budget item has not received an increase for over a decade. When we call and we ask for assistance in our community to deal with encampments, under bridges, in parks, it's these programs where we work and partner with community outreach providers to do the necessary work to address homelessness. This is but one part of the piece and the strategy for addressing and tackling homelessness by this majority, and so in strong support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. All right, members, with no further comments, before we move on to the next page, I would like to take a moment and do a lay introduction. Representative Garrett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members in the gallery behind me are several students from Mid-Pacific Institute in my district, specifically Mr. Porter's 10th grade MPX class. If I could please ask the Napueo to stand up to be recognized by this body. Welcome to your Hawaii State House of Representatives. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Kahaloa.
I have one introduction as well. We have in the gallery Council Member Sue Liloy from Hawaii Island representing Panaeva and Keaukaha. Welcome to your House of Representatives.
Thank you, members. All right, let's move on to the next page. SCR 1012. 1013. Representative Abelati.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support for 1012, request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Still on 1013, 1014, 1017. Next page. 1020, 1021, 1022, 1023. Representative Poi Poi.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick. So ordered.
Same request.
Moving on to the next page. 1024, 1025, 1026, 1028, next page. 1030, Representative Garcia.
Reservations.
So ordered. 1031, 1033, 1035. All right, members, Representative Morikawa for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all majority of members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 50, STANCOM report number 1004-24, HB number 1591, HD1. The following vote no. Kong Martin. On page 52, STANCOM report number 1023-24, HB number 2700, HD3. The following vote no. Capella Peruso. On page 53, STANCOM report number 1024-24, HB number 1829, HD1, Rep. Kong votes no. On page 54, STANCOM report number 1035-24, HB number 2406, HD2, Rep. Kong votes no.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 50, SCR 1006-24, House Bill 2544, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 1011-24, House Bill 1834, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. Page 51, SCR 1012-24, House Bill 1941, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 1017-24, House Bill 1545, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. Page 53, SCR 1024-24, House Bill 1829, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 1025-24, House Bill 1972, House Draft 1, Garcia votes no. SCR 1028-24, House Bill 2517, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. Page 54, SCR 1033-24, House Bill 2738, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no. SCR 1035-24, House Bill 2406, House Draft 2, Garcia votes no.
Have all votes been cast? Said House bills passed third reading. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the standing committee reports listed on pages 55 through 60 and that the company House bills as may be amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Any discussion on STANCOM report 1036-24? 1037, Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On 1036, just with reservations.
So ordered. Representative Ayu.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Alcos.
I'm opposed. No vote, no vote.
Proceed.
In my district, to transfer, to upgrade to the cesspool and tie in, to see that my kapunas, our families have to spend $20,000 to $50,000, to convert. I can see if the state comes in or government comes in and we can get some kind of special funds in helping our constituents out, but I cannot see how to pass this bill and put this problem all on them 100% when already it's hard for them to make a living. So, no vote.
This is on 1036?
Yes.
All right, members, let's go back to 1036. All right. Representative
Speaker,
Ward.
Same request.
So ordered.
No vote.
Representative Hussey Burdick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, brief comment.
Proceed.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that when we initially started the discussion about cesspool conversion and upgrades, it was really expensive to upgrade to sewer. For sure, a sewer connection does cost $20,000 to $50,000. However, there are a wide range of alternative toilet technologies, which can cost only about $1,000 per unit, per toilet. So there are a lot of low-cost resources and funding available from the state to upgrade so that it doesn't cost $20,000 to $50,000. Thank you.
All right, members, with no further discussion, let's move on to 1037. 1038. 1039. Next page. 1040, Representative Matsumoto.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Sorry, I'm rising on 1039.
Proceed.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. 1040.
Also 1040 with reservations.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Matsumoto.
Just to clarify that my with reservations vote was on 1040 and not on 1039.
So ordered.
Thank you.
All right, members, moving on to 1041. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Proceed.
This bill would increase conveyance tax on the people of Hawaii. My understanding is that Hawaii has some of the highest taxes in the nation. I recommend we decrease taxes and not increase it.
All right, members, let's move on to 1042. Representative Albaladi.
Mr. Speaker, on 1041, in support with request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Representative Ward.
Speaker, 1042, right?
Yes.
I stand in strong support because I love ADUs. Accessory dwelling units, Mr. Speaker, is key to the housing crisis. The infrastructure is already there. The property is already owned. It doesn't take anything other than what this bill does, is provide a loan. So I want to thank the Chair of Housing for this creative, innovative bill, and I want to thank the Chair of Finance for blanking out the interest rates because we don't want to have it at market rates. So everybody can afford to do this, particularly for the people in Maui and other places. And I know people on the neighbor islands have a lot of land, and this is going to be a boon for them also, and especially for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. All right, members, let's move on to 1043. Next page. 1044. 1045. Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On 1044.
1044.
Yes. In strong support.
So ordered.
I'd like to thank the introducer of this bill as well as all of the students from Mililani High School who have come out and testified on this bill, the importance of having local agriculture in our schools. I think this is something that we really need to focus on, especially when we're trying to support our small farmers and actually all of the farmers across our state. The one thing that I ask as we go forward, I know this bill is focused on only plant-based, but as somebody who comes from a farming family, I know how important it is to support our poultry farmers, our cattle ranchers, and all others that are not just our plant-based farmers in Hawaii, but in strong support and permission to insert additional written comments.
So ordered. Representative Garcia.
In support.
So ordered.
I wouldn't think I would be speaking on plant-based meal options, Mr. Speaker, but I do support plant-based meal options. I think looking at my community and my district and talking to some of the students in my schools, the issue of lifestyle diseases is quite prevalent in our Native Hawaiian community. In my community, I have lots of Hawaiian homesteads, and there are high rates of hypertension, type 2 diabetes, cholesterol, atherosclerosis, all types of lifestyle diseases. And if we can encourage a more healthier lifestyle within our schools, this will benefit my community. So in support, thank you.
All right, members, we're still on 1044. No further discussion. Let's move on to 1045, 1046, 1047. Next page. 1048, 1050. Representative Pierrick.
In opposition.
So ordered.
This bill would require basically merchants to have charging stations in their parking lots. So if a person drives into the merchant's parking lot, they can charge their vehicle and then drive on their way. There's no mention in this bill that requires the person charging the vehicle to go into the store and buy something to compensate the cost of the electricity that the merchant would have to pay to charge the vehicle. Let me give you an example. This past January, I went to San Francisco, and I went with my friend to various places in that area, and he would go from store to store charging his vehicle. Okay, the owners of those stores have to pay for that electricity. That's not going to help the merchants, and this bill won't help the merchants of Hawaii. I'm voting no.
Representative Lowen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in support. If you take the time to read the bill, that's not what it does. There's already an existing state law that requires EV charging stations, I think per the number of stalls, 1 per 100 stalls. And there's no provision that can't be charged for. In some of these stations, the merchants can opt to charge for it. They're not required to give free electricity. What this bill does is just say that per that requirement that already exists and has for, I think, more than a decade, that those stalls have to be built in the location where that requirement was incurred, because right now the law allows for, say, a new Target to be built in Kona, but all the EV stalls can be put in over on Hilo side. So we're just saying it has to be at that location. And then it also allows the counties, if they choose, to have the authority to require additional stalls under county law. So that just gives them home rule, and that is what this bill does. Thanks.
All right, members, let's move on to 1054. 1055. Next page. 1056. 1059. Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I have a floor amendment to offer.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Copies of floor amendment number 1 have been distributed.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the floor amendment.
Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you and the members can turn your attention to the floor amendment before you, number 1, the only thing that I am requesting to amend within House Bill number 2553 is parental consent, is adding in parental consent. So the only thing we're adding in here is on page 3, number 9, that says the pharmacist has provided the vaccine information statement to and obtain consent from patient's parent or caregiver prior to administering the vaccine. This bill gives way for physicians, physician assistants, and interns to vaccinate people ages 3 through 17. And all this floor amendment says is that's okay if their parents say okay, if they have consent from their parents. This isn't a partisan issue. This is a basic common sense issue. And I think most parents would agree that they would not want their child to be vaccinated against their consent or against their will. So I would kindly urge this body to adopt this common sense floor amendment in supporting parents' rights over their keiki. Mahalo.
Representative Al-Baladi.
Mr. Speaker, in opposition.
Proceed.
In opposition at this time, Mr. Speaker, insofar as this floor amendment is unnecessary as parental consent is required for vaccinations through a myriad of other laws, including HR 671-3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussions on the floor amendment? All right, members, we're going to take a voice vote. All those in favor, just a reminder, the vote aye if you are in favor of the floor amendment, vote no if you are opposed to the floor amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The floor amendment has failed. Members, we are back on the main motion, discussion on STANCOM Report 1059. All right, members, moving on to 1060. Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
Proceed.
LGBTQ rights are human rights. In our state's defense of civil liberties for all, preserving bodily autonomy is a matter of urgent concern. There has been a great deal of misinformation deliberately spread about this bill. So today, I wanted to correct the record and respond to those who have put a politics of fear before the politics of individual liberty. Here is what this bill actually does. First, it protects providers and recipients of gender-affirming care from being targeted by out-of-state agencies that seek to undermine the bodily freedom and seek to undermine their bodily freedom and obtain their private patient information. Sadly, this is something that has been done by red states all across the country in an attempt to suppress gender minorities. Second, this measure protects families from having their keiki removed by out-of-state agencies for providing their keiki with access to gender-affirming care. Again, this is something that far-right officials are doing in an effort to literally steal transgender children away from their parents and their homes. Third, this proposal improves access to gender-affirming care by allowing telehealth providers to prescribe hormone treatment without an in-person consultation.
Point of order.
Representative
Recess,
Nakamura.
please.
Members, subject to the call of the chair, call in a recess. The House come to order. Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to strike my comment far right and just say individuals from red states are doing this.
So ordered.
Thank you. Okay, fourth, this bill further enshrines bodily autonomy into state law so that individual medical decisions are made by doctors, their families, their parents, and their patients. Finally, here is what the bill does not do. This bill would not allow minors to access gender-affirming care without parental consent. I'm gonna say it one more time because I think a lot of people don't get it. If you are a parent and you decide to do this with your child, then it's okay. But you cannot, your child cannot do this or get gender-affirming care without your consent as a parent. There is no law in the country that allows that, and we are certainly not going to try and do that with this bill. Additionally, this bill would not cause parents to lose custody of their children for restricting access to gender-affirming care. If your child wants gender-affirming care and you say no to your minor child, they have to listen to you as the parent. On the contrary, this bill guarantees that parents who do allow their children access to gender-affirming care won't lose their children because of custody challenges brought by other states. It is not the advocates for this bill who are trying to limit individual rights or take away people's children. It is the opponents of gender-affirming care who are attempting to prevent families from making a choice that is in their best interest and who are supporting laws that would criminalize their keiki for expressing their true identity. I think it's so important that we support parents' rights and support families who choose this. Just because someone has a different choice than you doesn't mean that you should take that away from them. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
In opposition, strong opposition.
Proceed.
Thank you. I want to read the description of this bill, House Bill 2079. It relaxes the requirements for prescribing certain controlled substances as part of gender-affirming healthcare services. It expands the protections established under Act 2 to include gender-affirming healthcare services. It clarifies jurisdiction under the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act for cases involving children who obtain gender-affirming healthcare services. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before on this floor, House Bill 2079 is a blatant attack against the parents and families of Hawaii. This is children we're talking about. And it's, I think some folks, Mr. Speaker, like to make this argument over a particular group of people. My opposition to this isn't targeting anyone for their lifestyle choice, the way they choose to live their life. This is a free country, and I believe every citizen has the right to live life as they wish, and no one can tell them what to do or how to live. But this is children we're talking about, minors. Not anybody, this is minors. And this bill targets children. This bill has had quite the discussion across Hawaii in recent weeks. And what I'm hearing from the people of Hawaii, who, yes, have read the many pages of this bill, is simply this: leave our keiki alone. These decisions, when they engage in gender-affirming care, are permanent. They are life-changing. As I said before, this isn't just taking a pill or dyeing your hair color green or blue. This is life-changing alterations. It includes gender reassignment surgery and or hormone blockers, which I believe is chemical castration. And there have been no long-term studies to show the efficacy and health benefits from these gender affirmation drugs. The main drug that's used in gender-affirming care is something called Lupron, which, by the way, Big Pharma makes about $30,000 a year per person who's on hormone blockers, Lupron. This bill doesn't stop at the promotion of child mutilation. It continues, and here is what I find offensive.
Mr. Speaker, point of order. There's nothing about child mutilation in this
Hold on,
in this bill.
Representative Capella, you're not recognized.
Thank you for
I
democracy.
ask that he constrain his remarks to this bill.
Mr. Speaker, recess.
Mr. Speaker, really a point of order is
Calling
about
a recess at
parliamentary
this time.
procedure.
Recess.
This is not parliamentary procedure when you stay.
Will the House come to order? Members, let's just remember, let's keep our remarks to the bill. Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as I will continue to keep my remarks pertaining to this bill. This bill does not stop at the promotion of child mutilation. It continues, and here is what I find offensive. On page 48, it
Point of
states-
order.
Hold on, Representative Nakamura.
Keeping remarks to the bill and not going beyond the contents of the bill.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about House
Representative
Bill
Garcia.
2079. Okay? And I'm going to continue in opposition. And it is my opinion, Mr. Speaker. And by the way, this is a free country. We're allowed to have our own opinions. And folks may not agree. They may disagree.
All right,
but we have the
Representative
right
Garcia.
to have our own opinions.
State your opinion.
So on page 48, it says this: a court of this state shall have temporary.
Point of order.
Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, please strike that this is child mutilation from
Mr. Speaker,
the journal.
recess.
Members, calling a recess. Will the House come to order? All right, members, let's get back to action. Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Continuing on, my opposition to House Bill 2079, Page 48 states, and I quote, "A court of this state shall have temporary emergency jurisdiction if the child is present in this state and the child has been abandoned or it is necessary in an emergency to protect the child because," and then it gives two reasons. The first reason makes sense. The child or sibling or parent of the child is subjected to or threatened with mistreatment or abuse. That makes sense. But the second point, the child has been unable to obtain gender-affirming healthcare services. Mr. Speaker, I think what this bill does is it lays the foundation because there are those who fear that families from red states who have passed legislation prohibiting this gender-affirming care for minors, that those families would come here and make Hawaii a gender-affirming sanctuary state. And that if those states try and enforce their laws on their residents, we step in and our court system steps in and we now have temporary emergency jurisdiction over their children in court. This is a blatant attack on families. It's against what we believe here in Hawaii. Parents have a fundamental right to raise their children the way they want. And if parents are okay with this, that's great. That is their right. But there are many, many, many families who disagree, who feel that this is a bill that should not be passed in Hawaii. So for those reasons, very strong no vote.
Representative Al-Baladi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
Proceed.
I want to point to the exact same language that the previous speaker pointed to, and what he fails to emphasize is that the child has been abandoned. That this law goes into effect when the court finds that the child has been abandoned. There are many situations that it will be a court to determine and then provide this access. And so for that reason, to read this law in its entirety, to look at Section 583A, and to understand that this is not taking away the parent's right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Perry.
In opposition.
Proceed.
This bill has many dynamics, many facets. I'm going to be against the theme of the bill, which is gender-affirming care. I would like to thank the heart behind inclusion and equity. All members of our community are valuable. This bill relaxes requirements for what and how physicians prescribe controlled substances like puberty blockers and hormones in regard to gender-affirming care. It allows out-of-state physicians to prescribe with merely a telehealth interaction, no need to be in person. So a doctor can be on the phone talking to the family, and they can initiate sex change surgery processes like hormones and puberty blockers. A potential dilemma facing transgender children, their families, and their doctor is this: taking cross hormones can reduce fertility. There isn't enough research to find out if it is reversible or not. So when children make the decision to start taking hormones, they have to consider whether they ever want to have biological children. No long-term longitudinal studies of puberty blockers and their effects on children have ever been done. Thus, the treatment that this bill encourages is somewhat experimental. Concerns have been raised that hormonal suppression of puberty may permanently alter neurodevelopment. The possible impact of puberty blockage on a young person's cognition has important implications for the capacity to give informed consent. In other words, if a child takes puberty blockers, if they're going to, in the future, make medical decisions about sex change surgery, their ability to make that cognitive decision has been decreased. Sweden was one of the earliest and strongest supporters of gender-affirming care. A Swedish study published in 2011 found that, quote, persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have higher risks for mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than the general population. Our findings suggest that sex reassignment, although temporarily alleviating gender dysphoria, may not suffice as treatment for transsexualism. Countries who are earliest supporters of gender-affirming care, such as Finland, Sweden, Norway, and the UK, are now backpedaling and acknowledging how experimental this treatment is. As legislators, we bear the responsibility of weighing the consequences of the legislation we enact. Should we open the door wider for our keiki to embark on a journey filled with uncertainties and implications when they have yet to attain full cognition development? It is incumbent upon us to safeguard their well-being and refrain from endorsing experimental procedures that have no definite solution to gender dysphoria. I implore my colleagues to consider the gravity of the decision before us. Let us prioritize the welfare of our youth. They deserve nothing less than our unwavering commitment to their health and future well-being. God made male and female. He did a pretty good job. Men and women are equal, and they're complementary in biology.
Representative Quinlan.
In opposition, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
And I'd first like to commend the introducers' really hard work on what is an incredibly complex issue. Personally, I don't know that I think it's as cut and dried as either side would have us believe. I am concerned about the lack of data. I'm concerned about some of the provisions in this bill. I'll save the rest of my comments for final reading, but I am forcefully reminded of something Sartre once said, l'enfer, c'est les autres.
Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
Proceed.
I'm sorry. I want to back up what the chair from our Health Committee on Health says. That is how the bill is structured to be. This bill provides a safeguard for our families from having their children removed by out-of-state agencies for providing them with life-saving medical care. It does not take away parental rights. In fact, it protects families' right to live in a supportive home. I also want to clarify that being transgendered is not a choice. No one wakes up one day and decides, hey, I'm going to be transgendered and I'm going to make my life 10 times harder, because the data shows and it indicates that 82% of trans individuals have considered suicide. 40% of them have attempted it. It's even higher amongst our transgendered youth. This bill saves lives, and I urge this body to support it. Thank you.
Representative Peruso.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Proceed.
As someone who represents a community in which there are multiple families whose children have attempted suicide for these reasons, for the reasons mentioned by the previous speaker, I want to support this particular measure, and I do want to circle back to the specific work that this measure does. So it does not create any laws that authorize surgeries on minors or take away children from their families. I think that's a really important clarification because there has been a lot of misinformation on social media. This bill will ensure that parents in Hawaii cannot have their children removed by out-of-state courts for allowing medical care under a doctor's supervision for their child that is already legal in the state of Hawaii. It only seeks to hold residents of our island home harmless from laws enacted on the continent. And for those reasons, I'm in strong support.
Representative Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, with reservations. Time and time again, Mr. Speaker, we hear this term thrown around on the floor about parental rights. And once more, this term has been used in reference to this bill, that this bill will infringe on parental rights. However, parental rights cannot be given by the government because parents have inherent rights in addition to fundamental rights under the law. In Pierce v. Society of Sisters, a Supreme Court case from 1925, it states that, quote, "The child is not the mere creature of the state. Those who nurture him and direct his destiny have the right, coupled with the high duty, to recognize and prepare him for additional obligations," end quote. Generally, this body can only affirm parental rights. So the very individuals on this floor who keep begging this body to give parents rights are contradicting the very essence of their arguments rooted in faith and religion that parents should have the right to raise their children. Parents do have this right, and they can exercise it freely, with exceptions, as this fundamental right is not absolute. A Harvard Law Review article pointing to the specific dilemma of banning gender-affirming care states the following, quote, "Many other courts and commentators have presumed that parents' common law right to supervise their children's health care is constitutionally protected. Gender-affirming care bans would likely violate this right. Prohibiting parents from authorizing medically necessary treatment for their children when they believe this care is in their children's best interests is just the kind of intrusive government conduct that parental due process rights guard against," end quote. The argument that parents should have the right to raise their children as they choose is the very crux of this bill. This bill specifically states that a law of another state that authorizes a state agency to remove a child from their parent or guardian based on the parent or guardian allowing the child to receive gender-affirming health care services shall be against the public policy of this state. Banning gender-affirming care and imposing your wishes on trans youth is making decisions for these families. The Supreme Court in the Troxel decision said this, quote, "For the state to delegate to the parents the authority to raise the child as the parents see fit, except when the state thinks another choice would be better, is to give the parents no authority at all. You may do whatever you choose so long as it is what I choose to do also. Does not constitute a delegation of authority. If there is no delegation of authority, there's no barrier between the state and how parents raise their children," end quote. You can't have it both ways and provide contradictory arguments. On one hand, some on this floor are saying parents need rights, while also simultaneously saying they know as legislators what is best for our children, without caring about the overwhelming evidence that this course of treatment in this bill protects, and it is the standard course of action for dealing with gender dysphoria, according to the supermajority of medical institutions. Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility on this floor to express the facts of bills and not sensationalize issues just to provide content to the social media crowd and rally our bases. Again, Mr. Speaker, I cannot infringe on a parent's rights to raise their children as they deem fit. And therefore, I will be voting yes with reservations on this measure. Thank you.
Representative LaChica,
Hello, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
proceed.
I would like to thank the introducer as well as the health chair for the clarification provided on this bill. Mr. Speaker, I am in support of access to care because I do believe that every single individual should be able to live their fullest lives. I do want to share that, Mr. Speaker, that in 2022, the legislature did pass into law House Bill 2405, which strengthens our Gender-Affirming Treatment Act and provides access to gender-affirming care deemed medically necessary. I also appreciate that this bill seeks to offer protections to those who seek and provide gender-affirming care in the state without fear of prosecution. While there are attempts across the nation to ban gender-affirming care access, I do believe that Hawaii will never be one of those states. However, despite the proactive intent of this bill, I do feel that it is in search of a premature problem. Missing in this measure is testimony from providers saying that this bill is necessary for the protection of public health beyond what is already legal under current Hawaii law. Providers, and I've spoke to some providers, currently offer gender-affirming care, and the law in place already protects patients from discriminatory treatment as well as decisions that are found to be cosmetic. Finally, testosterone is classified as a Schedule III controlled substance due to its potential for risk and misuse and concerns without a thorough in-person evaluation. Hawaii laws would not prevent testosterone from being prescribed if deemed medically necessary. Providers are able to make and do telehealth consultations after a first in-person evaluation. So for those reasons, I am a no at this time.
Representative Kilo,
Mr. Speaker, opposition, please.
proceed.
Could I please adopt the words of the health chair and the vice chair of higher education as if they were my own?
So ordered.
And brief comment.
Proceed.
Whether this bill chooses to pass or not, predating the legislature and predating time, Mahu folks in the Native Hawaiian community are here and have always been here. Thank you.
Representative Valcos.
In strong opposition, Mr.
Proceed.
Speaker. Our children make mistakes, change their minds. As they get older, you know, they always come back and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I wish I would listen to you back in the past when I was younger. You know, we raising our kids, we do want to give them and support them on their decision. Understand that the bill that we want to help them out. But if you, for example, if you pick, a pineapple is green, you're not going to eat the pineapple. You're going to wait till the pineapple get ripe, and then you're going to eat the pineapple later on when the pineapple is ripe. Why cannot we wait till our kids turn at the age to make their choice? Why do we have to support them at the younger age when the mistakes is happening at our younger age? I made mistakes at my younger age. Those are the most time that I made the mistakes. You know, but to show the love and care just because that child and say, I want to be a man or I want to be a female, and we're going to support it that way just because of that. But that child cannot make that decision at that younger age. I feel that we should be supporting our kids by the right time as they're growing up to make that decisions for themselves. So I oppose this. Thank you.
Representative Ganadin.
Mr. Speaker, in support. I was actually surprised in a full read of this bill about how little it actually changes in the law. As mentioned by several other speakers, this legislature changed the law several years ago regarding the ability of individuals age 14 and up to get gender-affirming healthcare services. I wanted to also note that the big chunk of the bill has to do with the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Enforcement Act, acronym UCCJEA. It gets kind of technical in family court when we discuss which court will have jurisdiction over the custody of a child. These sometimes end up in appellate courts. But because we're talking about 14-year-olds, 14-year-olds tend to choose where they want to live with their feet. So oftentimes a family court will just ask the young person, where do you want to live? How do you want to live? Which parent or guardian do you want to live with? And for that reason, I'm in support of this. I think we need to defend our family court's ability to honor the wishes of young people and where they want to live. I'm also concerned about the differing state opinions that might be coming down the pipe in the next few years and the possibility that young people might be removed from this jurisdiction based on open decisions by the Ninth Circuit or the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Representative Chun.
Reservations.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Perrick.
A point of personal privilege.
State your privilege.
If I could make a recommendation for everybody to include in their next mailer that they voted yes on this bill, if they did, and explain to them what this bill means and let their voters know what they're doing.
That's not what it's used for with your personal privilege, but let's just move on. All right, members. Representative Martinez.
Speaker, no vote.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Matsumoto.
No vote.
So ordered.
And permission to insert comments in the journal.
So ordered. Representative Souza, second time.
Second time, Mr. Speaker. And just a point of order, I know that there was not a ruling on the earlier decision to strike child mutilation from the record. Can I proceed?
On your point of order?
Yes. I'm making the same point of order, but a different explanation.
Yes. It'll be stricken out of the record.
I'm sorry.
That's the point of order.
Yes, well, yes, I would like to strike child mutilation from the record.
Yes.
Okay, and just with a little explanation.
No.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Did you just say yes to striking the word child mutilation, or is yes to the point of order?
Yes to the point of order.
So the word child mutilation has not been stricken, correct?
It is stricken.
It is stricken.
Representative Garcia, if you would like to challenge the chair's
That's
ruling.
what I'm doing. Point of order.
Recess.
Call recess. Will the House come to order? Representative Souza, explain your point.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to strike child mutilation from the record because child mutilation is not an actual term, and further, it's an inappropriate term and was derived from extreme right-wing rhetoric. And can you please strike extreme right-wing and put in conservative
Point of order,
states?
Mr. Speaker. Can you please strike the words right wing as it was
I just
stricken
struck it
earlier?
myself, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on, members. Okay, thank you for all the point of orders.
And there is female genital mutilation and circumcision that is oftentimes mistaken for male genital mutilation, but the broad term genital mutilation or child mutilation is sensationalizing gender affirming care and is factually incorrect. And even if used, it's being used in the wrong context. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members. Looks like no further discussion. Let's move on to STANCOM Report 1061. Next page, 1062, Representative Pirik.
Sorry, Mongo.
Representative Hasi Bardik.
Sorry, on the previous bill.
Say it again.
On the previous bill, 1061.
Okay, let's go back to 1061.
Thank you, with reservations.
So ordered. All right, members, moving on to 1062. Representative Poi Poi.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Hasi Bardik.
Sorry, with reservations.
So ordered.
And may I ask that the previous bill, I'm actually voting no on. I submitted a green slip. Sorry.
So ordered. All right, members. With no further discussion, let's go to 1063. Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I have a floor amendment to offer.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, copies of floor amendment number 2 have been distributed.
Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the said resolution.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few comments to make common sense out of what otherwise is a zoning issue. This came to my attention from a constituent who is old, who's taking care of a family member who's crippled, disabled, and they live on Social Security. The point is to amend something to allow people who in their home allow short-term rentals, people who are totally within the vicinity of all of their rooms, except they rent out a room temporarily. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill for our kupuna. It's a bill for those who are on fixed income. It's a bill for those who are just being able to make it. And it's not people who come in and buy and make Airbnb. It's for those people whose homes are there, who they have supervision over, who have jurisdiction over. And the amendment says, hey, let's let these old people do that so they can survive because of the high cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a tweak saying, don't exclude the old people. And I urge all of you who have constituents who are old to consider this, because it's not bringing any new visitors to Airbnb. It's allowing people to rent out a room and not being considered those who are being excluded by many of the zoning laws. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, it's common sense. Give the kupuna a break. Thank you.
Representative Evzen.
In opposition.
Proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. The purpose of the bill is to give the counties the authority to if they choose, phase out non-conforming vacation rentals over a reasonable period of time. They, under the current version of the bill, without the amendment, the counties could choose not to phase out hosted short-term rentals. The problem, in my opinion, with the proposed amendment is that it would apply much too broadly in that there are lots of owner-occupied parcels that are non-conforming that I think the counties will want to phase out over a reasonable period of time. For example, this would include part-time residents who have, say, a homeowner's exemption for their parcel. They live in it for part of the year, but then they short-term rent it when they're not here, right? This amendment would prohibit those from being phased out. It would also apply to parcels, which we have a number of them on Kauai, with multiple vacation rentals on a single lot of record where the owner lives on site. So there's examples of 5 or more vacation rentals on a parcel. Owner lives on there. That's essentially a hotel in a residential area. Counties wouldn't have the authority to phase that out if they so chose. I believe that it would also be hard for them to enforce, and it would create a legal loophole that would open them up to challenges as they try to phase out these rentals over time. So for those reasons, I oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, second time in support. Brief rebuttal. Mr. Speaker, the reason we have committees is so we can amend things, and the reason why we put amendment is so we can think of things in a different way. For example, we could put a means test. As I said, this is for old people who are on a fixed income, who have a house, which is probably their only asset, to supplement their Social Security. So we could do a means test. We could do an age test. We can do something that says even you have to be an owner-occupant. The point is, Mr. Speaker, we can carve out an exemption for those people who are barely making it in Hawaii. And I don't need to remind everybody, 15,000 people are leaving every year because of the cost of living. This is the chance to keep the Kama'aina kupuna home, and regardless of how there's those who are going to take advantage of it, there's nobody taking more advantage of the Airbnb now than what's already on the books. My point is, Mr. Speaker, this bill has the potential to be good for the older people, for those on Social Security, those who are fixed, which, as I said earlier, in my community, it's an elderly person living on Social Security who wants to rent out a room and do it legitimately, and it simply carves out that in this other bill. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, this is common sense, and if we remember, Hawaii has almost 20% of its population who are over 65. Thank you.
Representative Eslin.
In continued opposition.
Proceed.
Yeah, just to clarify again, the bill currently gives the counties the full authority, if they wanted to make carve-outs for hosted rentals with means testing, with whatever they want to do. In my opinion, the counties are better suited to come up with those carve-outs than we would in a blanket amendment here. Thank you.
All right, members. We'll be sorry, members. Got something in my throat. We'll be taking a voice vote. Just a reminder, the vote aye if you are in favor of the floor amendment, vote no if you are opposed to the floor amendment. So all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The floor amendment has failed. Members, we are back on SANCOM report number 1063. No further discussion. Let's move on to 1065. 1068. All right, members. Representative Morikawa for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 55, STANCOM report number 1036-24, HB number 1892 HD2, the following vote no. Gates, Kila. STANCOM report number 1037-24, HB number 2264 HD2, the following vote no. Ayu, Kila. For STANCOM report number 1039-24, HB number 1988 HD1, Amato, votes no. On page 56, STANCOM report number 1040-24, HB number 2328 HD2, the following vote no. IU, Peruso, Poi Poi. For STANCOM report number 1041-24, HB number 2364 HD2, Kong votes no. On page 57, STANCOM report number 1044-24, HB number 2083 HD3, following vote no. IU, Kila. STANCOM report number 1045-24, HB number 2705 HD1, following vote no. IU, Lamasao, Peruso, Poi Poi. For STANCOM report number 1047-24, HB number 2081 HD2, Kong votes no. On page 58, STANCOM report number 1048-24, HB number 2246 HD2, the following vote no. Gates, Holt, Kahaloa, Kila, Lamasao, Poi Poi. STANCOM report number 1050-24, HB number 2012 HD2, Kong votes no. STANCOM report number 1055-24, HB number 2526 HD2, following vote no. Hussey Burdick, Capella. On page 59, STANCOM report number 1056-24, HB number 2748 HD2, following vote no. IU, Holt, Kila, Kong, Miyake. For STANCOM report number 1059-24, HB number 2553 HD2, following vote no. Gates, Kila. STANCOM report number 1060-24, HB number 2079 HD2, the following vote no. IU, Gates, Holt, Kila, Kong, La Chica, Lamasao, Martinez, Quinlan. For STANCOM report number 1061-24, HB number 2007 HD3, the following vote no. Capella, Martin, Peruso, Poi Poi. For page 60, STANCOM report number 1062-24, HB number 2261 HD2, following vote no. Capella, Peruso. STANCOM report number 1063-24, HB number 1838 HD2, Kong votes no. STANCOM report number 1065-24, HB number 2504 HD2, Kong votes no. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 55, SCR 1036-24, HB 1892, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Perrick, and Ward vote no. On SCR 1037-24, House Bill 2264, House Draft 2, Perrick votes no. SCR 1038-24, House Bill 2743, House Draft 2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. Page 56, SCR 1040-24, House Bill 2328, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 1041-24, House Bill 2364, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia, Perrick, and Ward vote no. SCR 1042-24, House Bill 2548, House Draft 3, Perrick votes no. On page 57, SCR 1046-24, House Bill 2139, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 1047-24, HB 2081, House Draft 2, Garcia, and that's it, votes no. Page 58, SCR 1048-24, House Bill 2246, House Draft 2, Reps. Garcia and Ward vote no. SCR 1050-24, HB 2012, House Draft 2, Reps Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 1055-24, House Bill 2526, House Draft 2, Rep Perrick votes no. Page 59, SCR 1056-24, House Bill 2748, House Draft 2, Reps Garcia, Alcos, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no. SCR 1059-24, House Bill 2553, House Draft 2, Reps Garcia and Perrick vote no. SCR 1060-24, HB 2079, House Draft 2, Reps Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no. Page 60, SCR 1063-24, House Bill 1838, House Draft 2, Reps Garcia and Souza vote no. SCR 1068-24, House Bill 2720, House Draft 3, Reps Garcia, Perrick, and Ward vote no.
Have all votes been cast? Representative Lamasao?
I'd like to cast a no vote for STANCOM Report 1056, HB 2748.
So ordered. Representative Hasibardik?
May the record please reflect a no vote for SCR 1061, HB 2007.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Any other members? All right, members. Said House Representative Nakamura. All right, members. With no further votes, said House bills pass third reading. I'll call the recess.
Recess.
With House come to order, members are on item 6B. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House bills listed on pages 61 through 67 pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion, members? Beginning on page 61, HB 2317. HB 2094. HB 2524. Next page, 2352. 1840, Representative Lachika.
Mr. Speaker, on House Bill 2352,
Please proceed.
with reservations.
So ordered. Okay, HB 1842, 1527, 1580. Next page, 1682, 1980, 1595. Representative Chun.
Reservations.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Kitagawa,
in opposition and comment,
please proceed.
this bill creates a state-initiated process to expunge criminal records related to the offense of promoting a detrimental drug in the third degree, which would include possession of 3 grams or less of marijuana, which was decriminalized in 2019. However, as I stated during second reading, under Hawaii Revised Statute 712-1249, attempting to expunge records under this HRS would not only expunge those in possession of 3 grams or less of marijuana, but would expunge all offenses charged under this section, which includes possession of less than 1 ounce or 28 grams of cannabis, nearly 10 times the decriminalized amount, as well as any amount of a Schedule 5 substance. This bill, as written, does not achieve the expungement of 3 grams or less of marijuana, which is our legal decriminalization law, but in fact expunges other offenses that are not decriminalized and still not allowed by law. I'd also like to thank the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee for holding an informational briefing last week on the issue of expungement. During this informational briefing, it was shared by both the Attorney General's office as well as the Judiciary that more time is needed to study and discuss how best to create a state-initiated process for expunging a person's record. They referenced a bill moving through the Senate which would establish the Clean Slate Expungement Task Force to develop a state-initiated record-clearing program. This task force would include different departments as well as organizations to determine ways to best move forward with expungement of a criminal record. I believe that we should focus on something like this as a first step, instead of passing this bill, which is clearly not worked out and does not achieve the outcome that it is intended. The informational briefing also provided information and data that I believe was not taken into consideration when creating and moving this bill forward, and in my opinion, brought up other issues that should be discussed regarding expungement, like non-conviction records and the many steps that currently happen for an expungement to take place, as well as the numerous departments that are involved in the process. I believe that this bill is premature and may have unintended consequences if it is passed into law. And for these reasons, I am in opposition to this bill. Thank you very much.
Representative Tarnas,
In support.
please proceed.
Thank you. This measure creates a state-initiated process for the approximately 30,000 people who have a record for either an arrest or conviction under HRS 712-1249, which includes the lowest level cannabis possession. Unfortunately, we cannot disaggregate the amount of cannabis or whether someone was arrested for a different substance. So the only way to bring relief to all these individuals is through expungement for all offenses under this particular part of the HRS. Many states have transitioned to a state-initiated record clearance process, including Utah, Michigan, and Minnesota, because we find that if it's a petition-based system, most individuals don't go through the process. It's a very complicated process that is intimidating. And so that's why we're trying to establish a state-initiated record clearance process. And so I urge all members to support this. Thank you, Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Matsumoto,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition?
please proceed.
And permission to insert the comments from the Vice Chair of Finance into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Ward,
Same request, please.
so ordered. Representative Garcia,
Same request.
so ordered. Further discussion? If not, 1664. Representative Souza,
With reservations, thank you.
so ordered. Okay, next page, 2342, 2804. Representative Pirik,
2342.
please proceed.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
Okay, so this bill would make it illegal to have a switchblade or a butterfly knife. If we look at the 2022 Supreme Court ruling on the Bruin case, American citizens have the right to defend themselves. So this bill seems to be in opposition to that Supreme Court case. I want to protect the constituents of District 39, and if they feel threatened or at harmed, they should be allowed to put those kind of knives, on their person to defend themselves. It's also my heart's desire to protect the people of Hawaii, outside of my district. So voting no against this bill would be an effort to protect the people of Hawaii, to allow them to have a switchblade and a butterfly knife on them.
Is there further discussion? Representative Alcos. Representative Pirik.
Thank you. To quote John Locke, the safety of the innocent is to be preferred. I'm voting no.
Representative Alcos.
Mr. Speaker, I'm voting no on this bill.
Please proceed.
The weapon that people are using are the butterfly knife, breast knuckle. The problem is not the weapon. The problem is the person behind the weapon. And if the person want to carry a knife or a gun or a switchblade, and they're going to do this kind of actions, that person is going to do that action anyway. To name that these weapons are the cause of the person doing this kind of illegal activities, I feel that it's not because of the weapon, it's because of the person, and therefore the reason I oppose. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
In opposition?
Please proceed.
Just want to say that with the rising crime statistics, and not just crime, but violent crime here in Hawaii, I think we should be encouraging self-defense and encouraging people to use non-lethal weapons such as these mentioned.
Is there further discussion? If not, 2804, 2311, 2513. Next page, 1604. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Please proceed. On 1604.
This bill would make it to where you can't arrest somebody if they're on probation. If they come back, they're tested positive for drugs. So if you commit a crime and you get released on probation, while you're on probation, if you check in with your parole officer and you test positive for drugs, when you're normally supposed to go back to jail, this bill would make it to where you don't have to go to jail anymore. Those who testified against this bill is the Hawaii Paroling Authority, the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney of Kauai, the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney of Honolulu. So I don't think that it's a good idea to pass this bill. The rationale of those in support of this bill say that there's not enough space in jail for those that would go to jail, so let's just make it to where less people go to jail. I don't think that's the preferred thoughts that we should have on the bill. I think we should put people in jail if they should go to jail. Thank you.
Representative Gannon.
In support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
I think the previous speaker might be confused. This bill has to do with screening and the ability for courts to mandate screening for defendants facing numerous charges. It received a whole lot of support. It's actually in practice in many courts throughout the state of Hawaii. So in support of that generalized practice for all defendants, in support.
Representative Tarnas.
Thank you. In support.
Please proceed.
This measure allows the court to order substance abuse assessment and treatment of a defendant before trial. It prohibits the revocation of parole or arrest of a parolee solely due to the parolee having one positive test for drug use. This standardizes, Mr. Speaker, what has become routine practice by allowing someone to have one failed drug test without violating the terms of parole. And this is important. Judges maintain the discretion to incarcerate, as the language is may, not shall. So I urge members to support this measure. Thank you, Speaker.
Is there further discussion? If not, 2470.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lamasao.
At the appropriate time, can we go back to HB 2804?
Yes, let's go back to 2804. Representative Lamasao.
Just want to register my reservations. Thank you.
So ordered. Representative Poi Poi.
Same request. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion on 2804. Okay, if not, we're on page 65, 2470, 2581, 2298. Next page, 2802. Any discussion? Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
If the government needs a framework to define marriage for tax purposes, they can simply create laws of civil union and taxing people that are multiple people living in the same household. It's not the government's job to define marriage, it's God's job to do that.
Further discussion. Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support?
Please proceed.
For 26 years, Section 23 of the Hawaii State Constitution grants the legislature the power to reserve marriage to opposite-sex couples, which has caused a lot of damage and hurt in the LGBTQ plus community. Lifelong partners were unable to be by each other's side as they take their final breath. Partners couldn't make financial decisions together. Many were unable to have their love recognized legally and were forced to live with a stigma not felt by their heterosexual peers. However, progress doesn't stop. In those 26 years, the Defense of Marriage Act was struck down as unconstitutional. The Hawaii State Legislature passed the Marriage Equality Act in 2013. The Supreme Court ruled that in Obergefell v. Hodges that marriage is a right nationwide, and the United States codified that right through the Respect for Marriage Act. Yet, despite all this change, Section 23 remains untouched in our Constitution. That changes with this legislation. Today, we'll be passing out of this House the first step to removing discriminatory language that should have never been in the Constitution in the first place. Public opinion has changed on the issue of marriage for the LGBTQ plus community. The people have come to realize that the community is just like everyone else. We are neighbors, lawyers, doctors, postal workers, and even legislators. And for 26 years, the community has lived under a constitution that excludes them. The Hawaii State Constitution should represent everyone, including the LGBTQ plus community. So I urge my colleagues today to please pass this bill.
Representative Todd.
Thank you. In support?
Please proceed.
The bill itself is very, very short. It actually just strikes out one sentence. And somewhat ironically, it actually restricts the power of government to define marriage. So strong support of having less government control over marriage. Thank you.
Is there further? Representative Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
please proceed.
Our state constitution providing that the legislature has authority to reserve marriage to opposite-sex couples is at odds with marriage equality for same-sex couples passed by this legislature in 2013. Hawaii affords same-sex marriage through statute, and to reserve the legislature the authority to overturn rights that were already afforded over 10 years ago is archaic and should be placed on the ballot to let the people of the state decide if Article 1, Section 23 should be repealed. The people of Hawaii should make this decision and decide whether or not we should continue to dangle this carrot that is embedded in our Constitution that could strip same-sex couples of their current rights under the law. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, 2692, 1602. Representative Quillen.
On 1602?
Yes.
With reservations, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, excuse me. I think I got what Gregor has. America has always been a nation of second chances. But are we to also be a nation of third and fourth and fifth chances? My fear is that this measure somewhat erodes our culture of personal responsibility.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Pirik, 1602.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill would allow someone, if they're supposed to appear before the court, if they don't appear before the court, they've got a 48-hour grace period. This is a weak on crime bill. We need to be tough on crime. People need to be held accountable if they commit a crime, and the process of that accountability is appearing before the court.
Further discussion? If not, 16. Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
On 1602, please proceed.
Some of the reasons given by the proponents for giving this 48-hour leadway, grace period, is traffic, car trouble, and not being able to find the right courtroom. I think these are serious issues. If people have committed a crime, they should be able to show up on time. And, just citing the testimony from Shopo, I think everybody sees that crime is rising in our state. And to note Shopo's testimony, it says, deaf to the pleas of those in our community for more to be done to address brazen criminals who seem to be operating without consequences. The backers of this bill wish to provide criminal defendants with more leeway and less accountability, which will directly affect the safety of our communities and further decrease the public's trust and confidence in our criminal justice system. Thank you.
Representative Souza.
Thank you. With reservations.
Please proceed. Representative Tarnas.
In support.
Please proceed.
This measure allows the person's attorney or the person, if the person is not represented by counsel, to contact the court during the grace period, if they missed their court appearance, to request that the initial appearance be reset in the court's calendar without the issuance of a warrant. We worked with the judiciary in order to come up with a language that we included in the draft of the bill before us today, Mr. Speaker, and we have the blessing of the judiciary with this language so that it would work within the functioning of the courts, and it's fair and reasonable. So I urge members to support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lamasau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations, thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, 1660. Representative Perrick.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill increases capital gains tax. This would discourage investors from investing in Hawaii. Elders often depend on capital gains tax. Hawaii is already the 10th highest in the nation when it comes to capital gains. I don't think we should be trying to, compete for a higher score when it comes to high taxes. I'm voting no.
Further discussion? If not, next page, 2652. 2653.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Pallotti.
on House Bill 2652, StanCom Report Number 750-24, noting reservations, please.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Further discussion on 2652? If not, 2653. 2660. Representative Pallotti.
Mr. Speaker, also noting reservations on House Bill 2653.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Garrett.
Yes, on House Bill 2664.
Oh, we're on 2653.
Apologies.
2653 members. Okay, if not, 2664. Representative Garrett.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in support.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is only within the last week that we have begun to comprehend exactly how dire our fiscal situation is with uncontrolled costs due to the Maui wildfires. We were initially told by the administration that the impact in this fiscal year would be about $200 million, and the governor's team did the best they could to free up funds, mostly by converting the means of financing for several projects and initiatives this body previously passed. Yet nearly 7 months after the fires, we're now learning that we need triple that amount, and without a clear plan on how to house the survivors at something less than $1 million per day, we really don't know how much we're in for. I mention this because my motivation for introducing this bill, which would lapse nearly $350 million in CIP funding for the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District, or NASED, and sweep nearly $50 million in the Stadium Authority Special Fund, was to make the point that in this type of fiscal emergency, there can be no sacred cows. Everything must be on the table as we decide how to salvage our financial plan for this supplemental year, even a project like NASED that has been discussed for over a decade. We should also identify other projects that may fall under the nice-to-have category and look for potential cost savings to help us balance our budget. Mr. Speaker, in your Committee on Finance, opponents of this bill pointed out that 10 years of planning has gone into this NASED project and that over $25 million has been spent so far and that walking away now would leave us with nothing to show for it. Admittedly, I only took 1 or 2 classes of economics in college, but I do recall learning about the concept of the sunk cost fallacy, which describes a tendency to follow through on an endeavor simply because we have already invested money, time, or effort into it, even if the current costs outweigh the benefits. As stewards of taxpayer funds, we should never throw good money after bad. In that same hearing, opponents also expressed concerns that canceling an active procurement may subject us to lawsuits. But I'll remind this body that the state previously canceled this very same RFP, and we were not sued at that time. Mr. Speaker, I would like to mention that the other reason I introduced this bill as the representative from Manoa is to support my beloved University of Hawaii and provide some assurance for the future of its football program. When Aloha Stadium was condemned in 2020 with hardly any notice, the university was left scrambling for a place to play. The state didn't provide any aid at that time, yet the university came up with $30 million to build a temporary stadium at its current site at Ching Field on the Manoa campus. It has been almost 4 years since the stadium was shut down, which means there are only a handful of players left on the team, if any, who actually played in Aloha Stadium. The best case scenario we hear from proponents of NASED is that the new Aloha Stadium would be available in time for the 2028 season, which means by then, 8 years would have passed and several hundred UH football players will have only known Ching Field. This is a long way of saying the university and its football program have been left twisting in the wind this whole time, and this bill would finally bring some certainty. Mr. Speaker, this bill does so by reappropriating over $200 million of the $350 million being lapsed back to the university to make Ching Field permanent and improve related infrastructure in the lower campus. With this money, will Ching Field become a world-class venue? No, of course not. Will UH ever become a member of a Power 5 conference with such a simple stadium? Again, of course not. But that was never going to happen anyway, no matter how beautiful a new Aloha Stadium might look like. I will concede that the University of Hawaii testified in opposition on this bill, but I'll remind this body that there are times when entities may feel compelled to make certain public pronouncements for a multitude of reasons. I'm confident that if the legislature decides that this is the best path forward, the university will gladly accept the funding and build a stadium as expeditiously as possible. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, what this bill does is free up sorely needed CIP funding in cash to help us meet our obligations to the Maui recovery, as well as other unmet needs of the state. I don't believe there's any other vehicle this session that would create nearly $200 million in combined capacity like this bill does. Finally, this bill also morphs the current stadium authority into the Hālava Redevelopment Authority and tasks it with deciding the best path forward for this 100-acre gem of a site, one that already comes with a fully built transit station. With apologies to the representative from Hālava, this site is completely owned by the state, so I believe all of us...
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Kilo.
yield my time.
Thank you very much. So I believe all of us should have a say in its future. Everyone in this chamber agrees that housing is the #1 issue facing our community. So hitting the pause button on NASED will give us a chance to decide what really is the highest and best use for this parcel. Mr. Speaker, this bill represents the last chance to have that important discussion. From my vantage point, this site is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to bring thousands of affordable and workforce housing units into the market in one fell swoop. I don't believe we'll ever get to the 50,000 units the governor tells us we need with simple urban infill projects here and there scattered throughout the state. We owe it to the people of Hawaii to start thinking bigger. If this repurpose authority were to issue an RFP along those lines, one that removes a burden of designing, building, maintaining, and operating a stadium, I believe there would be even more interest from developers in transforming that site into a vibrant, transit-oriented community. For these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of this bill, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same to keep this discussion going. I'd like to remind my colleagues that a no vote on this bill maintains the status quo, allows NASED to proceed, and does not free up the funds we need to address our ongoing commitments to the survivors of the Maui wildfires. Thank you.
Representative Quinlan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
I'd like to first say that I agree with almost everything the representative from Manoa just said. As the chair of your tourism committee, unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with canceling RFPs. And my concern is not necessarily the merits as it relates to the budget, but whether or not we as a state are going to keep our word. And we've seen this over and over with large-scale projects, or we've had to pull out for various reasons, whether they're political or financial or disaster-related. And I worry that it's creating a climate of business that is not friendly. And I worry that it will, in the future, increase our costs because fewer developers, fewer businessmen will actually want to come here and do business with us. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. First, may I request the words of my debating partner from the North Shore be entered into the journal as my own.
So ordered.
But let me be very clear, in strong opposition, Mr. Speaker, this bill is a loser. And I start with a question. Why is the convention center roof leak so badly in Honolulu at this Kalakaua and Kapiolani? Why does that roof leak? It's because we chose the wrong location. We wanted to go on the cheap. We wanted to go to Ching Field. Here's the equivalent. We were pushed to make a decision. Personally, I wanted to go into the Alawai Canal where there was going to be a mound. It was going to be under the ground. It was going to be environmentally perfect and beautiful. But no, we had to have centrality, even though it was still far away from Waikiki and you couldn't walk to it. The point is, when you make a decision about location, you're locking things in very seriously and very expensively. And we talk about Maui. This is $25 million we're going to throw out the window of which we've already invested. It's not good money after bad. It's taking good money and putting it into a bad location because Ching Field is going to be a loser. It's not going to get anybody to come to the football games, regardless of how bad UH is as a football player. The way that the Halawa Aloha Stadium made money is through concerts, and that's where the potential is with auxiliary functions, Mr. Speaker. It's common sense, it's economic sense. So if we're going to immediately save money and not borrow any more money, which we can do, we're going to create a loser which promotes us into mediocrity, which promotes us into a small little field which, once we do it, we're never going to build another Aloha Stadium. So, Mr. Speaker, let's get away from this conundrum. Just stick with what we've decided and not get a lemon like we got at the convention center. It doesn't make sense. This is a loser, the way we're shifting in the middle of the stream. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Alcos?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the introducers on this bill, trying to save the state some money to create some good ideas that they feel that, direction that we should go.
Are you in support or opposition?
I'm in opposition,
Okay,
strong
please proceed.
opposition. For the reasons why the stadium is where it is, it's centralized. It's an area where, the whole island can, an easy place for get to. We have the swap meet there. We built the rail there. We built over $20 million that we're losing just was invested in the idea that the stadium is going to be there. I think Hawaii should be the sports capital in this world. I think we should be bigger stadiums, and we got the best weather here. We should drive tourism in Hawaii more. I feel that by taking away the opportunity from little kids that's going out to the stadium and being able to get in there and play and perform and do all these other things, now they're going to have to travel to UH or different other areas and taking away these venues. I believe that we should invest into these areas for our kids, and not always that we're making money or we're losing money, but it's about the people and the quality of life that we start giving and sharing with them. And I think my side of the community don't want to travel all the way to UH or some other areas. We do want to have someplace closer to home and centralize where the stadium is now. I feel that's a good idea. If we could get something on the west side, I think it's a great idea as well. But for those reasons, I oppose on this bill. Thank you.
Further discussion, Representative Ayu.
Mr. Speaker, in opposition.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, in September 2023, the University of Hawaii hosted Stanford University for the football game. And what the university did was to accommodate the people at the stadium, which at the time held less than 14,000 people, was they transitioned all classes to remote, or they canceled classes. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the university, one, doesn't have the students as a priority as far as education is concerned, and two, that the university simply doesn't have the infrastructure to support a stadium of any capacity, and for that reason, I'm in opposition. Thank you very much.
All right, further discussion, Representative Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In support with written comments.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong opposition and permission to insert comments into the journal.
So ordered. Representative Ward, second time.
Second time, Mr. Speaker. I forgot to mention how adamantly against this bill by the University of Hawaii. Of course, we can force it down their throat, which the good representative from Manoa indicated. But in terms of making it successful, pushing something that big of a project of which they're not good at, they have not the capacity for, I think is bad business. I'm going to quote one of the sayings in the Finance Committee by one of the vice presidents from UH. When they testified in the Finance Committee, they told us, it's nice to have a boat, but it's even better to have a friend who has a boat. In other words, it's great that we have the Halawa Aloha Stadium. You know what a boat is? It's the continual pouring down a hole, money, dollar after dollar, continually without any end. And I know there's another way of saying that same thing. The last thing I want to say is, given our colleagues over in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, this bill is declaring war with the Senate. This is going to be a long, drawn-out battle if we stick to this particular vantage point of this bill. Economically speaking, again, the UH location is a loser. For the potential in the future, we've got to stick with the Aloha Stadium. This bill is changing directions. To me, as a conundrum, it just doesn't make any policy sense at all. Thank you.
Representative Bellotti.
With reservations, Mr. Speaker.
Sorted. Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
All things aside, it's about our kids in our state. Everybody grows up playing football. They want to play at Aloha Stadium. This year we had to have the high school championship at Mililani High School. Great stadium, great field, but it's just not the same. What are we telling all of our kids and our football team at UH that they're going to have to just play at Cook Field? It's what everybody grows up and strives to play for. They play Pop Warner games, they play high school games. Right now we have so many games at Farrington High School because that's the only place that they can play. It's just for our kids. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Amato.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Matsumoto.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Same request.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, HB 1808. Any discussion on this or any other measure? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 61, STANCOM report number 636-24, HB number 2094, HD1, the following vote no. Kong Tam. On page 63, STANCOM report number 653-24, HB number 1682, HD1, following vote no. Kitagawa, Kong. On STANCOM report number 655-24, HB number 1595, HD1, the following vote no. Ayu, Kila, Kitagawa, Kong, La Chica, Lamasao, Matayoshi, Nishimoto, Onishi. On page 64, STANCOM report number 661-24, HB number 2342, HD1, the following vote no. Gates, Kila, Kong, Lamosao. For STANCOM report number 663-24, HB number 2804, HD1, following vote no. Gates, Kila, Kong, Miyake. For STANCOM report number 668-24, HB number 2513, HD1, the following vote no. Gates, Kila, La Chica, Lamasao. On page 65, STANCOM report number 675-24, HB number 1604, HD1, following vote no. Ayu, Holt, Kong. STANCOM report number 679-24, HB number 2470, HD1, following vote no. Ganaden, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso, Poi Poi. On page 66, STANCOM report number 685-24, HB number 2802, HD1, Kong votes no. For STANCOM report number 686-24, HB number 2692, HD1, following vote no. Gates, Holt, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso, Poi Poi, Tam. For STANCOM report number 687-24, HB number 1602, HD1, following vote no. Gates, Holt, Kila, La Chica. STANCOM report number 740-24, HB number 1660, HD1, following vote no. Amato, Kong. On page 67, STANCOM report number 750-24, HB number 2652, HD1, following vote no. Ganaden, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Kila, Peruso, Poi Poi. STANCOM report number 751-24, HB number 2653, HD1, following vote no. Ganaden, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Kila, Peruso, Poi Poi. For STANCOM Report Number 753-24, HB Number 2664 HD1, following vote no. Ayu, Gates, Holt, Kong, La Chica, Lowen, Peruso, Quinlan, and Tam. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 61, SCR 636-24, House Bill 2094, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 642-24, House Bill 2524, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. Page 62, SCR 644-24, House Bill 2352, House Draft 1, Garcia votes no. SCR 645-24, House Bill 1842, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. SCR 651-24, House Bill 1527, House Draft 1, Perrick votes no. Page 63, SCR 653-24, House Bill 1682, House Draft 1, Garcia votes no. SCR 655-24, House Bill 1595, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no. Page 64, SCR 661-24, House Bill 2342, House Draft 1, the Minority Caucus votes no. SCR 663-24, House Bill 2804, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. SCR 668-24, House Bill 2513, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Ward vote no. SCR 675-24, House Bill 1604, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, and Perrick vote no. Page SCR 679-24, House Bill 2470, House Draft 1, Souza votes no. Page 66, SCR 685-24, House Bill 2802, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no. SCR 686-24, House Bill 2692, House Draft 1, the Minority Caucus votes no. SCR 687-24, House Bill 1602, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, and Perrick vote no. SCR 740-24, House Bill 1660, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no. Page 67, SCR 753-24, House Bill 2664, House Draft 1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Perrick, Souza, and Ward vote no.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? Okay, if so said, measures pass third reading. We're on item 7. Mr. Clerk, are there any resolutions for action?
Mr. Speaker, there are no resolutions for action. May all others be referred to print.
So ordered. Members, are on item 8. Are there any announcements? Representative Ward.
Speaker, when we come back from recess on Thursday, the fellowship luncheon will be taking place. We have a guest speaker from Wahiawa named Frank Quizo. And I think an invitation has been sent out to everyone today, so if you want to reserve your lunch, please do so. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, for the motion to adjourn, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon Thursday.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon Thursday.